everyone, and welcome back to the Live Your Extraordinary Life podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Brooke Jean to the Live Your Extraordinary Life podcast. She is a licensed therapist, a coach, a podcast host, and a speaker dedicated to helping high achieving women, particularly CEO boss moms, transition from healing to high frequency without the pressure to be perfect. She's a creator of the signature Unperfected method, which combines psychology, energetics, and neuroscience to guide individuals in shedding societal expectations and stepping into their most authentic selves. I am so thrilled to have her here. Brooke, welcome to the show.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. That my own little bio just like turned me up and turned me on just listening to it. I was like, let's go,
I mean, you're
baby.
speaking my language. You
You're
are
speaking
speaking
my
my
language.
language.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I can just feel it. This is going to be such a juicy conversation.
It is. And okay, I have to start from the beginning
Yeah.
because we have very similar stories of corporate women out there trying to make it happen, change the generational experiences for here to come, and then hitting that proverbial wall of burnout. Not that we weren't successful, we were very, very successful. And then realizing we have got to find a way to do it differently. So, why don't you tune us into your story? I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you went from that high power corporate job into what you're doing now.
Yes. Okay. So basically, my first part of my career right out of college was with Target Corporation. I got pregnant with my oldest, my son Camden, in college. And so I was like, wow, we're going to need a steady, stable job with good benefits, upward mobility, all of that. I went to the career fair for the first time ever and was like, oh, the people at the Target table were really fun and bubbly, and they had a leadership program. So I spent a decade kind of climbing that corporate ladder as a single mom. And while there was so much to be learned, so many growth opportunities, I mean, I look back on the level of responsibility that I had in my early 20s, and I'm like, well, that's throwing somebody in the deep end for a growth ride, you know? And so, but I climbed that corporate ladder and I was actually running a super target in Aurora, Colorado when the Aurora theater shooting happened. And I got a phone call at 3 in the morning from my early morning logistics executive saying, Brooke, you need to get down to the store. There's been a shooting at the mall, which was right across the street in the theater, and half of our team was in that theater and are unaccounted for. And it was that collective community trauma because we ended up losing a team member. And it was just absolute tragedy for our team and our team's families and our community. You know, your Target store is like a total pillar in the community. So we're just so close with our guests, which are our community. And so it was that experience that really kickstarted a what I now know to be a spiritual awakening for me. So I stayed and I rebuilt my team. We rebuilt as a community. I led them through that as any good empathetic leader would do. And then I went and got married and I sat on a beach in Maui for 10 days. And it was the first time I had regulated in probably since I was a teenage girl. And that's when I started remembering things from my childhood that were not super fun. And I was like, okay, the universe is kicking me in the you know what's because I think this is happening for me. I think it's my time to not do what I have to do, which was provide and raise my son and have this job and make the money and buy the house and do all the things. I want to do what I want to do. And so, like, at the peak of my career, I'm the breadwinner in my family. And on my honeymoon, I tell my husband, I think I need to leave my corporate job.
Welcome to marriage.
He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." I, like, knew honestly, Michelle, I, like, knew in my spirit that I was gonna have some deep work to do internally to be able to curate this external reality that I was desiring. And so I took 6 months off to what I call shed the corporate skin. Like, I literally didn't know who I was. I was like the target development queen slash young mom. Like that, I didn't know, like, who am I really under my roles and my responsibilities? What lights me up? What are my gifts? What brings me joy? Am I like, I was just living in shoulds and supposed tos. And so I took 6 months off and then decided to go back to school and get my master's in counseling psychology, and then launched my business 2 days after graduation, and that was 9 years ago. So I've been doing the therapy and the coaching and the facilitation and all of that for the last 9 years. So,
Amazing.
yeah, and
Amazing.
I do think it's important to note that at the time when the shooting happened, I was so unhealthy trying to keep up with that vicious burnout culture that can happen. I feel like perfectionists and women and corporate America are a combination, honey. A
I
recipe.
mean,
They are a recipe for burnout if you're not aware, if you don't have boundaries, if you're not healed. Like, I was literally successful as a trauma response, is how I explain it to people.
100%, 100%. Look, we have such similar stories, and a lot of my listeners know this, but like, I didn't have any idea of how much trauma I was dealing with that had been completely gone undiagnosed from childhood through adolescence into my 20s. And I used to think of it as what gave me the competitive edge because I was like always full of anxiety and it pushed me to work harder until it almost pushed me over the edge, right? Like it works to a certain point until it no longer works. And I hit up that proverbial wall. And a lot of people go, but in your 20s? And I was like, yeah, I was in my late 20s and I hit the wall hard. And it was the first of many awakenings. It wasn't the only one, right? The first of many. It got me to a new level, but then there was a lot to deal with and a lot to unpack that I wasn't prepared to do right off the bat in my late 20s. It was a little bit at a time over years. Really,
Yes.
I always say decades now.
Yes.
But I get it.
Yes.
I get it.
Yes. Yeah,
So
we were running, right? Like that hustle, that edge that you're describing, that competitive edge is really, it can be not for every woman. I'm speaking for myself, and it sounds like you're in a similar boat. It's like we were just running from our own anxiety in our body. Like, I didn't wanna be in my body, so I'm just gonna go do more and work harder and stay late, and then I get promotions, and I get bonuses, and I get all these accolades, and then that's tied to my worth, and so, really, it was me, like, running from myself, and I think hiding my trauma behind my accomplishments. Like, my trauma, I didn't realize it at the time, but there was a lot of shame stuck in my
mm,
body.
talk more about that. Where did the shame emanate from? Where did it come
Yeah.
from?
Well, I think women in general carry a lot of shame. We carry it transgenerationally. We carry our mother's shame. I mean, I love to ask this question. How many of you had a mom who loved her body?
Oh, yeah. My mom didn't know how to love herself because back then it was considered, I would almost say taboo to love yourself. You were supposed to be the one that made the dinner, fed everybody else, and waited on everyone else until everyone else was fed, clean up the kitchen, and then maybe you got to eat your meal in the corner standing up.
Literally.
I'm not joking.
Literally. So we've been shamed for having needs
Mm,
going back as long as history can track. So we have shame deep in ourselves. And then you add on our parents' pain, shame, and suffering, and they subconsciously added to that shame, not on purpose. This isn't about blaming the generation, but it is about pointing to the awareness that we are healing our mothers and our grandmothers' wounds and our daughters at the same time. And it's a big job, this
a big
generation. It's a
ask.
big job. But then you're told, this is an interesting thing that I've observed. A lot of us that are super driven, type A, perfectionistic, burnout Bettys, we were big personalities when we were little. And if you think that didn't get shamed in the classroom, I was like babbling Brooke. Like, it's too much. Like, you get shamed for our emotions. How many of us got shamed for our emotions? They were inconvenient. Well, I now know that my Emotional sensitivity is actually intuitive superpowers, but they were not harnessed. They were messy. So the shame basically starts in utero, honey, and then any trauma stacks on top of it. And so for me, this shame that I held in my body I was just running from in my achievements, and then I just thought if I could just achieve one more
One more
thing,
thing.
it would
Yeah.
mean I'm actually a good girl. Because I had this core belief that I was bad, I was unlovable, God didn't love me, all this weird stuff that, like, nobody ever said those things to me. But I believed them. And so there yeah, going back to what you were saying, there's so much unpacking that we get to do once we realize like, "Hey, I'm proud of how I've gotten here, but there's a better way for me. I need to heal and become whole." And it turns out underneath all of that, there is still a spark in me. There is a drive in me. There is emotionality in me, but now they're harnessed in a beautiful way. And so I can get results, but in a way that's fun and playful and all the other things. So,
I
yeah,
love
it's
that
been a
so
journey.
much. I mean, look, there's so much universality in the vulnerability of being able to say, I lived through a lot of trauma. And anyone who said, well, not me, probably just isn't aware of the fact that they were living through the trauma because for a really long time, I said, I really had a pretty good childhood, all things considered. And I did. That said, I am the product of teenage pregnancy. There was a lot of shame for my mom. She held a lot of shame around that. She was kicked out of her school, out of her home. And
Wow.
then there was a lot of pressure on me to perform, to do the things that
Mhm.
she wasn't able to do because
Mm.
her childhood got caught short. And then my father working 2 jobs. And so while it was never verbalized, I was absorbing the pain and then, like you, I think validating my existence through achievement. Okay, the next thing I achieve, the next award, the next promotion, the next scholarship, I'm gonna feel a little bit better, and that will make me feel whole, or that will make me get to the place where they know that I'm good enough, that I am enough. And it never happened, right? Here's the big spoiler alert. You're never gonna earn enough of those external accolades to ever feel like you're enough
Never.
because your validation shouldn't be coming from outside there, right?
That's the truth bomb. That's the truth bomb right there.
Okay, so I'm curious, all religion aside, just from a spirituality standpoint, I'm very curious. At what point did you sort of have that awakening of like, wait a minute, this is the experience I'm having, but my higher self, there's part of me that recognizes there's divinity even in this messy, imperfect life that I'm living. I'm actually a spiritual being having a human experience. Have you had that? Did you have that? What was it like when you kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. There's a whole other dimension I'm missing in the weeds of my everyday life.
Yeah, I feel like people think a spiritual awakening is just this, and it can be one moment where you just like come online and you raise consciousness and you see the truth of what is. For me, it wasn't that way. For me, it started out as a healing journey, Michelle. It was like, oh, shoot, I just remembered a bunch of things from my childhood that I think I need to process and metabolize out of my body. And so it started with therapy, and then I, like, found Gabby Bernstein's The Universe Has Your Back, and then Gabby Bernstein led to Rebecca Campbell, and then that led to, like, Marie Forleo, and all of a sudden, just by saying yes to healing. So I believe a spiritual awakening is really just a coming home to the truth of who you are. And so
100%.
mine was really, like, long-winded and unsexy,
Hey,
but
however
in
you
it
need to get there.
that's right, and with each new layer, I would have a new teacher come into my life that would help me see, "Oh, wow, everything is energy. Oh, wow, there is something divine here orchestrating this. Oh, wow, I am the consciousness that is observing my thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and actions. Oh, wow." And it's just been ever since then, I just keep climbing those levels of consciousness, but it was really probably from, like, 2012, which it turns out 2012 is a major year that a lot of light workers had big ass tower moments. So look at 2012 and what happened in your life that year. Because if it was a cluster F like mine was, right? Like the shooting tragedy, leaving my corporate job and getting married, and remembering my trauma all happened in 1 year.
And wasn't that the year that the Mayans had predicted was sort of going to
Yes.
be the end of the world, the
Yes.
apocalyptic moment? And so you kind of look at, like, what actually transpired during that year? What did it mean? Because it certainly meant the end of something and the entrance of a new ushering into a new era of being.
That's it. So everyone focused on the end, but with all endings come new beginnings. And so it was a massive awakening globally that year. And so as I was healing, I was starting to see there's purpose behind all this madness. Like, there's a reason why I had my son when I had him. There's a reason why I went to Target. There's a reason why I met my husband. There's a reason why this happened and I ran that store during that tragedy. There's a reason why I'm leaving that. Like, I have a bigger purpose here. I have a bigger calling here. And the more still I got, the more healing that I did, the more unbecoming I engaged with, that started to unearth and emerge louder and louder and continues to do so. So that's what it was. It wasn't, but then it's like, gosh, I feel like I hit another awakening last year. So I believe we go through several awakenings. Some of them are like quick, some of them are long, but really it's like an awakening to the truth of who you are, which then raises your frequency and your consciousness and your divinity.
Oh, it's so beautifully said, Brooke. And I think you're 100% on target with that because if I think back over the course of my life, there's never been a single moment of awakening. There have been many, some deeper, some not as deep. But nevertheless, I got this question on a different podcast that I was on, and the person asked me, what was it like when you finally stepped into your most authentic self? And I sat there for a moment and I said, I don't know, because I don't know that you're ever going to get to your most authentic self until perhaps you transition to the next experience of this spiritual journey that we're on. And I think I can tell you for a matter of fact that I'm much more authentic than I was 20 years ago, or for that matter, 5 years ago, or even a year ago. But that it's a constant evolution toward authenticity and knowing the truth of who you are. And to quite frankly, accepting and remembering that divinity and spiritually driven part of you that is connected to all things, right?
Yes, I completely agree. We're never going to arrive at this ultimate, here I am on top of the mountain. We're always growing and evolving and shifting. And actually, one of the, I think, obstacles women face in their ultimate becoming and the embodiment of their power and potential is that we limit ourselves. We don't give ourselves permission to be a work in progress, ever growing, ever evolving. It's like, well, I'm a mom, so I'm supposed to be this. And I'm a wife, so I'm supposed to be this. And I'm a corporate leader, so I'm supposed to be this. And it's like, no, queens, like you get to decide today that you want to do it all differently. You can parent different today. You can relate different today. You can go for a different career thing today. But we really limit ourselves of like, but we're supposed to be the same. What's digestible for society? What's dependable for society? And it's like, no, actually, I believe our purpose is to just heal, come home, and keep evolving into the truest version of who we are. And I don't know that we're ever done with that. But
Yeah.
we do. I just had a master class called Audacity because I was like, women, we need to have the audacity, honey, to permission ourselves to grow and change and evolve forever until we take our last breath on this earth.
And have that be enough as we're going through it, because I think that that is probably the hardest thing for women to get is that you can be a work in progress, and that is enough at
Mhm.
any stage you're in, at any
Totally.
stage. And I think the truth bomb here is that we all, you and me too, go through
Mhm.
these moments where we don't feel like we're enough, even after having done the work.
Totally.
So
Totally.
let's talk about that a little bit because I can tell you up and over the holidays, I was going through it and everyone was saying, oh my God, you're just doing so many fabulous things. You're such a rock star. And I was like, well, if I'm such a rock star, why is it at this very moment, I'm feeling all of this anxiety or not enoughness about one thing or another, right? Like are constantly having to remember that our worth does not come from our doing or it is simply because we exist, we are here. How do you work with women on that issue? Because I do think it's an ever existing issue we all grapple with.
Yeah, I think naming it and normalizing it primarily is huge. So, you have a brain that has evolved to keep you safe. Its only function is to keep you safe, utilizing the least amount of energy. So, you have a mechanism in your head that is constantly scanning for not enoughness, constantly scanning for where things could go wrong. Like, raise your hand if you've got a worst case scenario mind. Like, you're not crazy. It's not just you. All of our brains have evolved to do that. So if you know that, then you have to know though that you're actually bigger than your mind. You're bigger than your nervous system. So the mind is looking for evidence that you could be doing more, that you're not enough, that it's not safe, that you're not loved, all the things. And then it fires up your nervous system. And then you have anxiety. And then we're just spiraling and we're getting
And then we
nowhere.
break out the Oreos, ladies.
Yeah.
Yes. Don't do that. I do not recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, talk about, like, working on, like, things like drinking and binge eating, like, this is what we do to literally cope with these very real, very humanistic entities. The problem is our brains have kept evolving, even though our environment is not as scary as it was when we were, like, living the caveman and cavewoman days. So you've got to and this is where I help women connect to and embody what I call the inner CEO, which is the self, if you know internal family systems parts work. So, the self, what I call the inner CEO is your spirit. And it is the queen who just, she is enough. She knows that she's enough. She's already whole. She has what it takes. She trusts herself implicitly. She trusts others. Like she is the leader of the team. And I teach them how to tap into her and leverage her to keep the monkey mind at bay, to keep the fear and the ego and the wounded parts and the protective parts. It is like it's you have to realize that you are bigger than the parts of you that are telling you the lies that you need to do more and do it better. That's actually a protective part.
Mm. Let's talk about masculine and feminine energies because I think so many of us as CEO mom bosses are just dripping in masculine energy and suffering from not enough feminine energy, or at least not allowing more of that in because we have been taught historically that that is weak. It is not good enough. Talk a little bit about the importance of inviting both of those into your lives in order to create more harmony, more self acceptance, and frankly, to get shit done.
Yes. And this is something that I am still deep in working on. 'Cause your girl, all her protective parts are so masculine, and they get confused with my inner CEO, and then all of a sudden, I'm accidentally in my like, this is something that I have to work on every day. And remembering that, like, as women, we were designed to receive. Like, if you just look at the anatomy of the body, we were designed to receive and create. We were not designed to hustle and execute and strategize and all the things. We were literally designed to receive, take good care of ourselves, and create. And when
Let's
we
just hold right there because
yeah,
this is so juicy and this is so important. And I know there are going to be people that are listening that are going to hear this and it's going to spark something. And I don't want to leave it quite yet. We were designed differently. We were designed to receive and create. I want everyone to just soak that in for a moment because we have been historically programmed to negate that part of ourselves and to assume these masculine energies as our persona versus allowing both to occupy space in our lives. And it's so hard to let go of what the programming has created in our lives in order to welcome back what is naturally, innately our most powerful state of being. Let's
yes,
talk a little bit about that because I think
yes,
I'm just fascinated with the idea of, quite frankly, everybody, men included, have both
mhm,
energies. And
yes,
yet we all, as a society, for winning and being successful and doing all the things, we all gravitate toward the masculine energy, the do energy. How do we even get to a place where the feminine energy is not just accepted, but it's revered for the power that it has?
Yeah. Well, before we even go into that, I want to explain at least my philosophy and theory on why we're so masculine. It's like if you look back at history, everything was survival. It was war and it was the Great Depression. And so it was like, you better go hunt and get shit. Like we became intense because of our environment. And now we're just over exercising these as a way to get things done, even though our environment has shifted. So, step number one is remembering that we were designed to exactly what we're saying today receive, allow, create, collaborate, feel pleasure. And then, in order to do it, step one is we have to create safety. If we're not safe, we're going to go get. And there's a lot of different ways that we do that. We start with creating safety in our own bodies. We make sure our environments are more safe. We set boundaries. We have to make it safe for men and women to be feminine. We have to make it safe at work, so we have things woven in like rest and creative time and play and pleasure and all the things. So there's layers to it. It's a complex question, but it starts with creating safety. And then for women, once you can start to create that safety, it's like, ladies, follow what feels good in your body. So many of us have become disconnected from our bodies since we were little girls and we first had the thought that we wish our body was different. From that moment, that precious little girl started abandoning her body in whatever way. For me, it went really extreme all the way to, almost a deadly eating disorder, drinking problems, all of it. For others, it's just a really nasty inner critic or even over exercising, right? Things like that. But our bodies have stopped communicating with us what feels good and what pleasure is and what in like the intuitive nudges are because we stopped listening. So we got to slow down, create safety and clean out the cobwebs in our channels of communication to our body, which holds so much effing power and wisdom. Because when you start to connect to that, the masculine in you gets turned on like, what? I have this like whole well of power inside of me in my feminine that I haven't even tapped into. But yeah, you got to have the safety and we got to start to rebuild trust with our bodies and follow what feels good. And that will guide you more and more to what is feminine and natural and in alignment with you and your design.
Which, for those of you who listen in regularly, know we talk about the importance of really letting your intuitive part of you, the most wise part of you, have a seat at the table.
Mhm.
Listen to those whispers of the heart, those whispers. And that's what they are, right? They're whispers. They're not jumping up and down screaming. They're
Yes.
whispers. But those parts of you that are saying, hey, go this way, even though it sounds really counterintuitive,
Mhm.
it's because it knows a better path. It knows a shortcut. It knows the quantum leap. So
Yes. The quantum leap is so juicy, girl. We're going there. We're going deep. I love this.
we are. All right, my friend, I want to talk a little bit more about how you've transformed your life. And I want to understand it from the perspective of how you craft your day as an intuitive, as a healer,
Mhm.
as somebody who helps others heal themselves, how have you changed how you show up to your day and how you use your time? Because I think that the switch from corporate to the entrepreneurial space isn't necessarily a hard one. The problem is the reasons why we're drawn to it is to create the freedom and to have more choice over how we spend our time. And yet, we know so many women in this space bring over those unhealthy habits and end
Mhm.
up working three times as hard in
Mhm.
the entrepreneurial space than they did in corporate, which has some mandatory shutdown times. So
Yes.
tell me about how you've navigated this. I know I haven't done it perfectly, but I'm getting much better. But tell me how you've navigated this and what does your day look like? What are your non negotiables? What is it you've put into place as boundaries and parameters in order to show up, not just for yourself, but for all the women you serve?
Yeah. So it started with this deep knowing. And I feel like the more that I was sitting in the morning, I have a daily date with the divine. Okay. This is like the most important part of my day. I wake up in the morning, and the first thing I do is make sure that my thoughts are actually a mental projection of what I am creating in the field. So the first thing I do is I imagine myself in the vision that I've created for myself, living the most alive, free, liberated, just turned on, turned up. And I connect to her, and I'm like, I'm so happy and grateful to be alive. And that's how I start my day. And I taught myself how to reprogram my thoughts and beliefs by doing this. And so, because I used to wake up every day with a shame. What did you eat last night, drink last night, and how short were you with the kids? Kind of jam. So I start with choosing my thoughts for the day. Then I go downstairs, I get some hot lemon water. While it cools down, I do meditation, I do breath work. I connect to the earth and to the divine. Then I move my body in ways that feel good. Sometimes it's a gentle stretch, sometimes it's a full on twerk. And before I know it, then I go outside and I face the sun. I am reporting to duty. I'm ready to
Mm.
go. But I literally believe now wholeheartedly that self care is the vehicle to success for the feminine. So I like to spend about half my day in play, purpose, and pleasure, and the other half in work, which is also purpose, though. And I also make work fun too. But it's like half the day I'm actually creating with clients, leading masterminds, doing things. The other half of the day, and people think this is crazy, but it took me years to get here. So I don't want to make it sound easy because it's not. But I am just a ritual queen, honey. I have my morning ritual, and then I'll have a couple clients, and then I need to go on a walk. And then I have a client, and then I need to do a yoga nidra. And then I might have to have a Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And then I
Love it.
might like I literally, and then I go to dance class. And if you
Love
really
it.
look at my day, and then it's like I get my girl from school and I take her to ninja, and then we have family time and all that. So I really, number one, I think you got to live intentionally. There is always time for what matters most. It's just about what you're prioritizing. The more I take care of me, the better everybody else is going to be in my existence. So half my day, and it's not perfect. Some days I'll be like, damn, I really booked myself back to back all day. And I'm grateful for it. And I get through it, and I still take care of myself, but maybe it's a 2 minute breath work instead of an hour-long walk. But an ideal day is I have that morning ritual, I do some work, I have lunch and a mental health walk, I do some work, then I have a yoga nidra, then I get my girl, and then I have family time, and maybe I'll do yoga or whatever. That about half and half is how I like to spend my days.
I love this, and I hope everyone's listening carefully because Brooke has become an incredibly successful entrepreneur, not by overworking,
No.
but by incorporating play and pleasure into her day. Because anybody who's been doing this for any length of time where they've started to turn the corner recognizes that joy, pleasure, all of that is the portal. It's the jet fuel
Yes.
to the next quantum. It is not
Yes.
pushing yourself harder in the grind. And that's the thing I think we see the men doing it because they're all like grind, hustle, and it might work for them. They're
Yeah.
getting somewhere, but
Mhm.
we are designed differently. And while we will hustle when we need to get things done that need to get done, pleasure and joy are really our rocket fuel. And it is, I think, the biggest misconception that if you take the time to do those things that raise your frequency and your vibration, somehow you're not being disciplined enough about your business. And I cannot begin to stress to you that it is the exact opposite.
That's exactly it. I say this all the time, Michelle. I'm like, your frequency is better than any marketing strategy. Do you want to know why I get clients? Not because I have the perfect website, not because I have the perfect social media, not because I have the perfect offer. It's because people see me alive and they're like, what is she on? I want some of that. My energy is my best investment in my business strategy. And I've done it both ways. I did it the hustle masculine. And this doesn't just apply to entrepreneurs, this also applies to my corporate women.
Oh,
The more
100%.
you tend to your frequency and you have play and pleasure, the more influential you can be for your missions on your teams. It's not about another meeting. It's about how magnetic are you being? Because if you're magnetic, you won't have to try very hard to influence your teams to get them to, number one, feel invested in the mission and what you guys are doing, but to be invested in you. And so, yeah, the play, the pleasure. And then I would also say, instead of hustle, now it's courage, it's audacity. So I have the audacity, like, I will just pick up my phone and voice note you and say, hey, girl, I have a retreat style mastermind. It is $35,000, but you're the perfect queen for it. You want to come? Do you know another queen who wants to come? I'm not afraid to ask because I'm so in my purpose and I know this shit helps people. So that
Yeah.
also helps too.
When you know that you can help somebody get that transformation that's going to create the breakthrough they need to get to the next level of living well, then,
Yes.
you don't hold back 100%. I do think energy is the new currency, right?
Yes,
Like
yes,
everyone asks me, what's the thing? Like the money in the bank account we know is not going to be enough. We've experienced it. We all, on some level or another have experienced wealth. And
yeah,
so
of
to
course.
get to a place where wealth is really a totality and that you realize your currency is your energy, it's your ability to magnetize that which you desire and to create
Mhm.
opportunity and bring in the right people to go on the journey with you. And ultimately, I think it's not only just about coming home to ourselves, but it's this opportunity that we have to walk each other home. That's where the juicy
Yes.
experience of really
Yes.
being in it together is
Yes.
for me. Of like when you realize you're like, no, 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 you're not doing this alone. Come with me.
Yes.
Come with me. Let's do this
Yes.
together.
Yes, and this is why we're having this conversation, and I believe this wholeheartedly is like, now is the time. Now is the time for us women in leadership to embody our feminine and to create a new way to live, lead, and work. There needs to be new infrastructure, new paradigms, new ways in which we create. And we are needed now more than ever. The old way isn't working. It has us in the biggest deficit ever and sicker than ever, where it's not working. So now we need women to come together and connect and conspire and collaborate and bring our gifts and show there is a different way. And that's why I'm just like, I'm calling y'all forward. Like, let's do this together. Like, let's create the new normal in the way in which we work. It gets to be fun, it gets to feel good, and you get to have legacy and impact. And yeah, speaking of wealth, like for me personally, the happier I am, the I can't help but notice the more money I make. It's like I
It's
just
so
become a
true.
magnet. When I'm not focused on money, I'm focused on like last year, my word was aliveness. This year, it's infinity. But it was like every day there was intention to feel alive.
Mm.
And that became a magnet for people, places, things, opportunities, conversations that brought wealth in. So to me, it's like I don't think about making money. I think about how I can feel the most alive. And then the money comes.
I love that. That to me is where it's at. When we talk about living an extraordinary life, we're not talking about an Instagram perfect worthy experience. We're really talking about being fully alive for the experience of being human that we get to have on this journey. And then through that, being very intentional about where we put our energy and where we put our focus and recognize that it's in that aliveness that we
Mhm.
create the magnetism to bring in what it is we want to experience, that we are really creating our environment as we go, that we are the creators. We are the Davids of our own lives, right? We are the
Yeah.
masterpiece that we're creating. I
Yes.
love that so deeply. All right, I'm going to be remiss
Yes.
if I don't ask you this. So, first of all, I love that your word of the year this year, last year was aliveness, and now it's infinity, right?
Yeah.
Ooh. So, okay,
Yeah.
last year for me was elevate,
Ooh.
and this year it's expand,
Yeah.
expansion.
Yes, girl.
Ooh, I
Yes.
feel it. I feel it all. All right. I would be remiss if I don't ask you this and someone will catch me on it because it's the question I ask all my guests. And I forgot to do it right at the top because I was so excited. And that is,
Yeah.
what does it mean to you, Brooke, to
Mhm.
live your most extraordinary life?
Yeah, it's the perfect tie into what we just talked about. It's feeling aliveness in all the ways, always. So, whether I'm working, I'm here, I'm fully here with you guys, I am all in, I am present, and this is such a beautiful, expansive opportunity. When I'm reading my daughter books at night, I am fully with her. I see her beautiful eyelashes and her little freckles starting to form on her nose. When I'm on a walk, I'm juicing the freaking moment beyond belief. I mean, I took an epic women's retreat in Ireland last year. That was aliveness, but it's also in my everyday moments. Let me be clear. You can want more, better, and different. And we will get there by juicing the good that's already here.
Mm.
You don't actually need anything to have an extraordinary night, an extraordinary life and night. You've just got to see the beauty that's here now. And that takes presence and awareness. But the more that you focus on the beauty and the enoughness and the gold that's here now, you become a magnet and a master receiver for more on top of more on top of more. And so for me, infinity is like, how good does it get? The better it gets, the better it gets, the better it gets, the better it gets, the better it gets. So feeling alive in all the ways, always. That's my
Ugh.
definition of an extraordinary life right now.
Mic drop moment. Mic drop moment.
Oh, how fun. You get to hear
Oof.
everybody's answers to that. What a juicy question. And I just love the invitation for women to ask themselves that because we don't. Like, I was just doing a live coaching on creating your epic life, and we're starting with vision. I'm like, when was the last time truly you, badass woman, asked yourself, like, who am I really? And am I happy? Is this my idea of an extraordinary life? And without shame, allowed your real truth to emerge. We don't do that enough.
No, we don't. And in fact, we guilt each other when we do. So I'll give you a real world example.
Yeah.
Going back to the generational healing that needs to happen with our grandmothers, our mothers, our daughters, and so on and so forth, our nieces.
Yeah.
So I very intentionally, many years ago, after having one of my biggest awakenings where I realized that I was sacrificing for an ideal that was never going to be attainable, right? I had to have the perfect body, be the perfect wife, be the perfect mother, in the perfect house, in the perfect neighborhood, and the
So
perfect professional,
exhausting.
right? You're
Oh,
like, and it's never ending.
mm-mm.
And I was just so burnt out and everything. And I said, you know what? I'm going on this really juicy vacation, like juicy. So we were overseas in 3 weeks, 3 beautiful weeks in a time in corporate America where nobody took more than 10 days. I said, no,
Yeah.
I'm going for 3 full weeks and I'm not answering the phone.
Woo.
Huh. And it felt so
Yes.
good. And I leaned deeply into it. And I convinced my husband to do the same. And we were away for all this time. And I got back and I had been on yachts. I had been in, mansions in the waterfront, all the things. I just said, what do I want to experience? I want to experience it all. Not because I
Hell
had
yeah.
to in order to feel good, but
Yes.
because I wanted to, because I
Because you
could,
deserved it. Because you
because I deserve it.
deserved it. Because you
And I
wanted to be
got back
alive. Yes.
and I got, well, aren't you lucky?
I know. I know.
And I
I
said,
know.
no, I'm very intentional. There is nothing lucky about what
Lucky.
went down. I was not just sitting around and that was dropping in. What was happening is I was deciding in my mind what I wanted to experience, and then I was acting on it. And you would
Yes.
be surprised at how easy it ultimately was. It didn't
Mhm.
actually require me to have, at that point in time, 7 and 8 figure businesses in order to make that happen. It's
Yeah.
actually quite doable, but you
Yeah.
do need to ask and you do need
Yes.
to be intentional about what you want. And when you say out loud what you want, you'll be surprised at how fast the universe is ready to give it to you. And
Yes.
so that's been so much of the perennial teaching of you need to be able to first decide what you want to experience,
Mhm.
envision it, and
Mhm.
speak life into it. Because if you don't do that, whatever that is, whether it's a
Mhm.
better marriage, a beautiful home, a healthy family, more balance to your life, a healthy body, whatever that is, for me at that
Yes.
moment in time, it was I want to be on an epic adventure where I lose myself in Europe and I can put who I think I am on hold and allow myself to expand to imagine what I could be. I don't
Yes.
even know who she is yet, but I'm excited to get to know what she likes. So let's go
Yes.
have some fun. It
Yes.
was the door opener to so many
Wow.
more good things because I
Yes.
was willing to do the same thing. Pick up the phone, in this case, walk into a store, talk to a stranger, ask a question, say yes to people who said, "Well, you seem interesting. Come to dinner with us." Or "You seem interesting. Come on our boat." I would
Yeah. So
just
fun.
talk to random stranger. My husband's like, "Oh my gosh, are we going to get out of this alive?" We had the most epic time. We ended up on a yacht. I said I wanted to be on a yacht. I'd love to be on a yacht. Wouldn't it be great to be on a yacht in the Mediterranean? Boom, a
and
guy
you
walking by with
manifested
his
it.
dogs who I said, "I love your dogs, great looking dogs." "Oh, that's my boat over there. What are you guys doing later today?" "I guess we're
Oh,
coming on your boat."
yes,
But we
yes,
need to be able to
yes,
recognize the power in creating a vision and allowing ourselves to speak life into it, even if it seems crazy to envision because we've never experienced it before. Because that is
yes,
the only way to create. And I think we
yes,
have taken away our ability to think like a child, right? To
yep,
suspend disbelief and allow ourselves to make believe and see what happens. And that's where I want
yes,
to play. My
yes,
son said the most beautiful thing to me about 6 months ago. We talked about this. Our sons aren't too far apart in age, but mine's a
yeah,
senior in high school now.
yeah.
And he says to me, "Mom, I don't know anybody your age who acts more like a kid." And I said, "My
Thank
workout is
you,
done."
thank you,
You like my
thank
workout is
you.
done. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And anyone could see.
Yeah, because what you become available for in that energy, the imagination, the imaginative play, the infinite possibilities, like you become a match for that by allowing yourself to be that way. That's huge. What a beautiful compliment. And I want to say, when people are judging because you're having the audacity to dream big, to vision, to stand for your vision and to go for it, you gotta know that it means that you're on the right track. So their judgment is really just about the envy because they wish they could. And so the way that I see that, because I trigger a lot of people, because I just say it like it is and I'm like not afraid. And so I do trigger people and not on purpose. But when people get triggered, I'm like, listen, and I mean this with love, invitation for you to look inside at where you're not showing up for your truth and your life. And maybe this trigger will spark something in you where you start living your extraordinary life and you can thank me later for this trigger now. But
I
that
love it.
judgment is, to me, I see it now is like, this is what it means to be a trailblazing woman in leadership is showing what's possible even when our societal programming judges it. It's like I remember on my 40th birthday, I went on a solo Sedona spiritual adventure to Miyamo, which is like a gorgeous spa tucked into this little canyon in Sedona. And in the airport, I had this husband and wife be like, "Where are you off to?" I was like, "Sedona. It's my 40th birthday and I'm going on a solo spiritual adventure. I'm going to go find myself. I have a child, who's like older now and blah, blah." And they were like, "Without your family?" And I looked at the woman and I said, without my family, it's gonna be so good.
You just know she was like, "Damn,
And there was a
girl."
transmission, heart to heart, soul to soul, where the way they said it was quite snarky, honestly.
Right.
But because I was so okay with my choice and I wasn't triggered by their lack of understanding and their judgment, we actually got to the heart to heart transmission where I gave her permission in that moment to do the same. And that's what we're out here to do. When you get to be successful living like a kid and just being bewildered all the time, now you make it okay for other women and what's possible, literally, this is the kind of stuff that gives me freaking goosebumps every day. What is possible collectively when all of us women start living and leading in this way?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, just imagine the fact that all of these people, if we could just for a moment suspend disbelief, allow everybody to feel enough healing to step into that power collectively, there'd be so much
Mm.
peace. It might actually nullify a lot of the stuff we're seeing in the world. Really.
100%. Because think about it, like, if we're not busy hating ourselves and our bodies and buying things and judging each other and shrinking to fit, if we're not busy doing that, what are we using that energy for? I'll tell you, healing.
Mhm.
I'll tell you, awakening. I'll tell you, creating. I'll tell you, coming up with complex solutions to complex freaking problems that just come to us. Sisterhood, community, love, the truth. That's what happens. And so that's really what my purpose here on the planet is to just remind us like that's what we're here to do.
That is
Let's
exactly what
go.
we're here to
And when
do.
one woman heals, there is a ripple of good that goes on forever and ever. Amen for that.
Mm. Okay, there you have it. There's so many mic drop moments in this conversation. I don't even want it to end. But
I know,
alas,
so
we're
fun.
coming to the end of our time together. Brooke,
Yeah.
do me a favor. We'll include all the links, but please let people know where they can find you.
Yeah. So on Instagram at Brooke Jean Unperfected, I have a podcast. It's called the Unperfected Pod. And my website that has all my programs and all the juicy things that we do is liveunperfected.com.
We'll
Just go
include
unperfected and you can't miss
all the
me.
links in there. And Brooke, talk to us a little bit about your latest offering because I know you just launched the Audacity program. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm actually currently in the launch for the Unperfected Mastermind. So I did the Audacity Masterclass. Now I'm doing a 5-day Create Your Epic Life challenge because doors close next Tuesday. So we might be launching this after that. So that's a 6-month container for women to heal, become, and rise. Lots of women who are in their midlife awakening. Who am I? What do I want to do? Enter that container. And so then I'm going to be welcoming in women for the Alchemy Mastermind, which is a 12-month. We only meet once a month, but we do three-day deep, intense immersions in luxurious, beautiful places in the world where you heal, become, and rise. But you get out of your toxic environment. This is for the queen that is afraid to breathe or heal because the house of cards is going to come falling down. We're going to go to Ireland, we're going to go to the Bahamas, and we're going to get you right with yourself. And then you get to come back and see that the world didn't fall apart. So doors are opening for that in April.
I love it. Brooke, it's
Yes.
always a pleasure. Thank you so
Yes.
much for your time, your insight, your wisdom, your love. I've enjoyed every minute of it with you.
Ditto, sister. You're doing such good work in the world. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Until next time, go and live your extraordinary lives. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please take a moment to rate and review. If you have recommendations for future topics, please reach out to me at michelleriosofficial.com. Lastly, please consider supporting this podcast by sharing it. Together, we can reach, inspire, and positively impact more people. Thank you.